जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे राम हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 जय गौरान्विता कृष्ण कृष्ण जय राधा मदन मोहन राधा मदन मोहन राधे जय राधे श्याम राधे श्याम जय राधे श्याम जय गोवर्धन गिरि गोवर्धन जय गिरि गोवर्धन जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव गुरुदेव जय जय गुरुदेव हरे नाम संकीर्तन की जय हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय जय गो प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान् सहगणा ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगे राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दं माधवं चैतन्यजगदीश्वरं कथाञ्चन स्मृते यस्मिन् दुष्करं सुकरं भवेत् विस्मृते विपरीतं स्यात् श्रीचैतन्या नमामि तम्। हरे कृष्णा।
Prabhu, I don't know whether this was for that particular moment or not, but your voice was breaking during the Jai Radha Madhav song. Maybe it is a bit better now. We will see. If it is not, then maybe we'll see
Okay,
what.
I'll try to come a little closer.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, original music. Now, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu, it is fine now. Will you share the screen or shall I share it?
Yeah, I will share.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to our weekly study of Srimad Bhagavatam. As you know, Srimad Bhagavatam is the Amala Puranam, which has given to us by Srila Vasudev, and this is called as Nigama Kalpataru. This is the mature fruit of Vedic tree, and this has given by Shukadev Goswami that made it even more sweeter. As the third verse of Srimad Bhagavatam says, Nigama Kalpataror Galitam Phalam Shukamukada Amrita Dravasamvitam Pibata Bhagavatam Rasemalayam Muhuraho Rasika Bhuibavukaha. So here Vasudevji is telling, oh gentle one, please release the nectar of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we also know what's the importance of Srimad Bhagavatam. So we are all suffering in this material life. So the only way to get rid of this material ocean is by taking shelter of Lord Krishna and his pastimes. So that is, it's stated in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Nivritta tarshair upagiyamanat bhavaushado chotra manobhiramat. So we are all, entangled this ocean of material existence, entanglement. So what is the right medicine? Bhava Aushada. That is Krishna's holy name and Krishna's pastimes. So I congratulate you all. Every week you come and you attend these classes, which certainly, purify our heart, and also it will help us to awaken our dormant love for Krishna. So yesterday was a very auspicious day. It was the appearance day of Nityananda Prabhu. You know, so Krishna had an elder brother. His name is Balram. So the Krishna and Balram in Kali Yuga, they came in the form of Gauranga Mahaprabhu and Nityananda, Lord Chaitanya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu. So Nityananda Prabhu is none other than Balram, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is none other than Krishna. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a verse. It says, Vrajendra Nandana se Sachi Suta se Balaram Hoilo Nithai. So Vrajendra Nandana means Vrajendra is Nanda Baba. Nanda Baba's son is Sri Krishna. Hmm? He is the he in Kali Yuga he came as a Sachi Suta, son of Sachi Mataji. Sachi Mata, that is the mother of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Nitai Hailo Balaram. So Balaram became Nitai. Nityanand Mahaprabhu is the original Guru. So as we all know, importance of Guru in our life. Even if you take the material example also, until unless we get a proper instruction from the Guru, will not proceed, will not progress. To the basic example, I'll tell you. So I know I was driving. I know driving from India itself, but when I came to Dubai, so I was very confident, I can drive. So, when I joined for my driving school, I told my driving instructor, you don't teach me anything, I know everything. Because in India, I used to drive big vehicles also. My friend had a rice mill, they had big trucks, So sometimes, as a, inquisitive, I used to drive that as well. So I told him, I know everything, you don't teach me. So then when I started driving here, then there are so many mistakes. So then he started correcting me all the procedure. So the thing what I'm mentioning is without Guru, we may think we know everything, but until unless we come in touch with the Guru, so that will not be notified. So same as in spiritual life also. So one spiritual success is mainly depend on the how much mercy he has received from the Guru. It is not, it will not depend on our scholarship, how many shlokas I know, how fluently I can speak. These are all secondary, but the first and foremost thing is the mercy of the Guru. So that's the reason, in the beginning we say a prayer. Mm. Uh, Mukam karoti vachalam. If you have the mercy, even a dumb person, he will become very talkative. And pangum langayate girim, a lame person, a langda admi, he will cross the mountain. That how? By jumping. In normal courses, he is unable to walk properly. But if he have received the mercy of Guru, he can jump the mountain. So we pray for Guru's mercy. And this Guru, Adi Guru is Balram and Nityananda Mahaprabhu. So let's offer our obeisances to him and we seek his blessing so that we can progress in our spiritual life. And we say one prayer to him. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. You can repeat also. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
जय जय श्री चैतन्य जय नित्यानंद
जय अद्वैत चंद्र जय गौरा भक्त वृंदा.
जय अद्वैत चंद्र जय गौर भक्त वृंद.
Thank you, Prabhu. So this is a prayer. We are praying for Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. We are praying all for Panchatatvas. So invoking their mercy. So let's start today's class. So now we are in first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 12, entitled Birth of Parikshit Maharaj. So far, we have covered up to 29 verses. Can you all quickly tell what are some important aspects we learned so far in this chapter? Sushil Prabhu, Rakesh Prabhu, Sumati Mataji. So whatever you remember from the previous sessions, you can tell. You all can unmute, right?
Prabhu, the chapter started with the birth of, how Parikshit was saved in the womb of his mother. by the Krishna, and then
Yeah, very nice. Yes, bro.
the lot of question is about those astrologers who came and after his birth and told so many things about Lord Parikshit.
Hmm. Wonderful. Yeah.
And then they gave the Yudhishthir, Maharaj Yudhishthir gave lot of you can say donations and all those things to them. And
Yeah.
actually, if you want verse wise, that also I can give, but that will just take some time.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Perfect, Prabhu. Perfect. Thank you, Sushil Prabhu. So as you mentioned, from verse number 1 to 3, Shaunik Rishi inquires about Parikshit Maharaj. Who is Parikshit Maharaj? How did he take birth? All this inquires. Then from verse number 4 to 6, Yudhishthira's exemplary rule is given. How Yudhishthira Maharaj ruled the entire universe. Then verse number 7 to 11 talked about Lord Krishna, how he protect the child Parikshit in the womb. So this also we have discussed in length. And verse number 12 to 15. So the ceremonies during Parikshit Maharaj's birth. So that also has been discussed. Then in the last class you have discussed about how Brahmanas predicted Parikshit Maharaj future qualities. So from today we'll start from verse number 29.
No, 30.
Sorry, yeah, third. Verse number 30. Yeah. So before that, we will read what was there, the 29th verse. 29th verse, it stated, thus,
The 29th verse describes that Brahmins gave all astrological features about this Parikshit Maharaj. Yudhishthir gave them suitable remunerations, and we discussed something about Vipras, who are mainly doing the Karam Kants, and the Brahmins are those who are expert in the spiritual knowledge.
yeah, very nice. Okay, so today we'll start with shloka number 30. Okay, verse number 30. Sayesha loke vikyatha parikshid iti yat prabhuhu purvam drustam anudyayam pariksheta nare shivaha. Translation.
So his son would become famous in the world as Parikshit, which means examiner, because he would come to examine all human beings in his search after the personality whom he saw before the birth. Thus he would come to constantly contemplate him. Maharaj Parikshit, fortunate as he was, got the impression of the Lord even in the womb of his mother, and thus his contemplation of the Lord was constantly with him. Once the impression of the transcendental form of the Lord is fixed in one's mind, one can never forget him in any circumstance. Child Parikshit, after coming out of the womb, was in the habit of examining everyone to see whether he was the same personality whom he first saw in the womb. But no one could be equal to or more attractive than the Lord, and therefore he never accepted anyone. But the Lord was constantly with him by such examination, and thus Maharaj Parikshit was always engaged in the devotional service of the Lord by remembrance. Shri Jeev Goswami remarks in this connection that every child, if given an impression of the Lord from his very childhood, certainly becomes a great devotee of the Lord, like Maharaj Parikshit. One may not be as fortunate as Maharaj Parikshit to have the opportunity to see the Lord in the womb of his mother, but even if he is not so fortunate, he can be made so if the parents of the child desire him to do so. There is a practical example in my personal life in this connection. My father was a pure devotee of the Lord, and when I was only 4 or 5 years old, my father gave me a couple of forms of Radha and Krishna. In a playful manner, I used to worship these deities along with my sister, and I used to imitate the performances of a neighboring temple of Radha Govind. By constantly visiting the neighboring temple and copying the ceremonies in connection with my own deities of play, I developed a natural affinity for the Lord. My father used to observe all the ceremonies befitting my position. Later on, these activities were suspended due to my association in the schools and colleges, and I became completely out of practice. But in my youthful days, when I met my spiritual master, Srimad Bhakti Siddhant Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, again I revived my old habit, and the same playful deities became my worshipful deities in proper regulation. This was followed up until I left my family connections, and I am pleased that my generous father gave the first impression, which was developed later into a regulative devotional service by his divine grace. Maharaj Prahlad was also advised that such impression of godly relation must be impregnated from the beginning of the childhood. Otherwise, one may miss the opportunity of the human form of life, which is very valuable, although it is temporary like others. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Sushil Prabhu. Yeah. So in this it stated that Sayaiva Loke Vikyataha. He will become famous all over the world. Parikshit iti yat Prabhu. Who is that? He is Parikshit. Purvam Drishtam Anudhyayam. So whoever he is going to meet, Pariksheta Nareshivaha. Whoever the men he sees, he is going to examine them. So that's the meaning of Parikshit. Parikshit means, Pariksha means exam. Parikshit means one who examines. Since you all know the story, like you all know the pastimes when the son of Drona, Ashwatthama, through the uh, Brahmastra on the last remaining person in Pandavas, that was Parikshit Maharaj. Then Uttara ran towards Lord Krishna and he prayed to him to protect his embryo. She says, Pahi Pahi Mahayogin Deva Deva Jagatpate Nanyat Tvad Abhayam Hastye Yatra Mrutyu Parasparam. She says, oh my Lord, please my protect. And she also clearly mentioned, I'm not praying for uh, my life. This is the question of our, future. I am bearing a son who is going to be, expanding the Pandava dynasty. If I lose him, our entire dynasty will come to an end. So I'm not worried about my life. I'm not fearful of my life, but I'm only praying, please save my son. This was the prayer of uh, Uttara. So then Lord personally enters the womb of Uttara and he protects the child. And he was so fortunate, he has seen the Lord while even at the womb of his mother. So when he came out, he keep on started, examining everyone. Whoever he meets, he's checking, is it the same person which I have seen him? Something like that he's checking. So that's the reason his name become Parikshit. Then later on, so like we are fortunate, in our tradition, we perform samskaras, right from the beginning, right? So in one of the samskara, of course, uh, sometime the people says the first samskara we undergo is garbhadana samskara, but actually the first samskara is vivaha samskara. So means marriage of the parents. Okay, then they will perform the garbhadana samskara. So then in the garbhadana samskara, then they will impregnate all spiritual qualities. Means the priest comes and he will perform one sacrifice. And why we do sacrifices? It will leave the impregnation in our mind. So in front of fire, anything we do in front of fire, so it has got, that is the evidence. We are taking a vow in front of the fire. So then that impression remains in our mind. So that's the reason, in all we have mainly 10 samskaras, starting from garbhadana samskara up to antyeshti. Antyeshti is the final rites we perform when a person leaves his body. So all these things, everything has got a fire sacrifice. The fire is the evidence, and that creates an impression in our mind. Even in our International Society for Krishna Consciousness, we take the Harinam Diksha. Means our gurus, they will give the Diksha, and it will be conducted in front of a fire. So we are taking a O in front of the fire. So means we follow four regulative principles, and we chant 16 rounds of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So the tendency is when you promise in front of a fire, that impregnation remains in your mind, and we will the failures are less. If you're constantly remembering that. So that is the thing. That's why we do the samskaras. And Srila Jiva Goswami also, he says, whatever we give it to the child in the beginning, so that will carry it forwarded. So that's the reason when there is a child at home, so we should give him, from the right beginning, at least 10-15 minutes every day, make him to chant basic prayers. So that really makes him Krishna conscious, and also his life will be very, very successful. And of course we all know, like in whatever the foundation you lay down while they are child, of course when they go to colleges and university, during those period there will be slack in their devotional service, but nonetheless that can be revived in the later stage. We have seen in from the personal life of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada himself writes in this verse, right? When he was child, his father gave him deity, and in front of their house there was a temple, Radha Govinda temple, and playfully he would worship the deities. He would imitate what is being done in the temple, but that has become impregnated in his mind. And then afterwards he became a youth. He started going to college, then he started his own business. Of course during those period, it was slightly slackened down, but then again it was revived when he met his divine grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada. So it's important, we should give this Krishna conscious, basic Krishna consciousness by the in the to the children, so that will help them in their future career. So that's what it means in this verse. Then we'll move on to the next verse, verse number 31. स राजपुत्रो विवृधे आशु शुक्ल इवोधुपः आपूर्यमाणा पितृभिः क्षथाभिरिव सोन्वहम्.
As the moon in its waxing fortnight develops day after day, so the royal prince Parikshit very soon developed luxuriantly under the care and full facilities of his guardian grandfathers.
Okay. So we know, no, like the month is divided into two. One is Shukla Paksha, other one is Krishna Paksha. Shukla Paksha means waxing moon. Means the first day on the Prathama, the moon is having very, very less effulgence. Then as the days progress, and it keep on increasing, on the full moon day, that is Purnima day, he is in full effulgence. So like that, here Parikshit Maharaj also, he is developing day by day under the care of their guardian grandfathers. Okay, so who are his grandfathers?
Pandavas. And
yes, Pandavas. Why his father's name is not mentioned here? Who is the father of Parikshit Maharaj?
Abhimanyu.
Yes. So right, Abhimanyu is no more. He was brutally killed in the war, right? By Kauravas. Okay. So we'll move on to the next verse, text 32. Yakshamaano ashvamedhena gnati droha जिहासयां राजालब्धादनो धन्यो नान्यत्र करदण्डयोः.
Hare Krishna. Translation and purport by Sri Prabhupada ji. Jai Sri Prabhupada ji. Just at this time, King Yudhishthira was considering performing a horse sacrifice to get freed from sins incurred from fighting with kinsmen. But he became anxious to get some wealth, for there were no surplus funds outside of fines and tax collection. Purport. As the Brahmanas and the Vipras had a right to be subsidized by the state executive head had the right to collect taxes and fines from the citizens. After the battle of Kurukshetra, the state treasury was exhausted, and therefore there was no surplus fund except the fund from tax collection and fines. Such funds were sufficient only for the state budget. And having no excess fund, the king was anxious to get more wealth in some other way in order to perform the horse sacrifice. Maharaja Yudhishthir wanted to perform this sacrifice under the instruction of Bhishma Deva. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much, Mataji. Yeah, so it's a pretty simple thing. Like Yudhishthira Maharaj, he desired to perform Ashwamedha Yajna. So on the order of Bhishma Dev, when they met Bhishma Dev, so Bhishma Dev instructed him, Yudhishthira Maharaj, to perform the Ashwamedha Yajna. So to counteract the sinful reactions he has committed. I mean, he has not committed, but during the war, so many peoples were slain and so many peoples were killed. So as an atonement to them, he wanted to perform this Ashwamedha Yajna. So if you want to do the Ashwamedha Yajna, a lot of funds required, so which the treasury was empty. So he was anxious to perform this Ashwamedha Yajna. So we'll move to the verse number 33.
Prabhu, one question.
Yeah.
Prabhu, what is the difference between Brahman and Vipra?
Yeah, there. So as the shloka says, Janmana jayate shudra, samskarat bhavet dvijaha, veda patet bhavet vipra, brahma janati iti brahmana. A person who takes birth as a shudra. Okay, so then samskarat bhavet dvijaha. One second, Subal Prabhu. Sorry, Prabhu. Yeah. Janmana jayate shudra. So we all born as a shudra. Samskarayat bhavet vijaha. So when we undergo the purificatory systems such as like Upanayana and all other samskaras, he is become a vipra. Sorry, he is become dvija, means twice born. Then after he become when he become dvija, means twice born, he has got the rights to do the, excuse me, bro. Sorry, bro. Some census people had come.
Yeah,
Okay.
no problem, Prabhu.
Yeah, so then once he undergoes Upanayana and he is eligible to study the Vedas. So then what he will do, he will take up study of the Vedas and Dharma Shastras. So Veda patet bhavet vipraha. He starts studying the Vedas and scriptures. Then he become a Vipra. Then after studying all the Dharma Shastras, all the Vedas, he assimilated. Then he understands who is Brahman is. Brahma janati iti Brahmana. Brahmana means one who assimilated all the Vedas and Dharma Shastras, and he also follow the way which is way of life which is prescribed in the Dharma Shastras. This is the difference between Vipra, Dvija, Vipra, and Brahmana.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Very
Yeah.
nice. Thank you.
We'll move on to 33 text. Tadapi pretamalaksya भ्रातरोज अच्युता चोदिताः धनं प्रहीणाम् अजार्हुर् उदिच्यं दिशि भूरिशः.
Understanding the hearty wishes of the king, his brothers, as advised by the infallible Lord Krishna, collected sufficient riches from the north left by King Maruta. Maharaj Maruta, one of the great emperors of the world, he reigned over the world long before the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthir. He was a son of Maharaj Avikshit and was a great devotee of the son of the sun god known as Yamraj. His brother Samvarta was a rival priest of the great Braspati, the learned priest of the demigod. He conducted one sacrifice called Shankar Yagna, by which the Lord was so satisfied that he was pleased to hand over to him the charge of a mountain peak of gold. The peak of gold is somewhere in the Himalayas mountains, and modern adventurers may try to find it there. He was so powerful as emperor that as the day ends of sacrifice, demigods from the other planets like Indra, Chandra, and Brahaspati used to visit his palace. And because he had the gold peak at his disposal, he had sufficient gold in his possession. The canopy of the sacrificial altar was completely made of gold. In his daily performances of the sacrificial ceremonies, some of the inhabitants of the Vayu Loka, airy planets, were invited to expedite the cooking work of the ceremony. And the assembly of the demigods in the ceremony was led by the Vishwadev. By his constant pious work, he was able to drive out all kinds of diseases from the jurisdiction of his kingdom. All the inhabitants of higher planets like Devlok and Pitralok were pleased with him for his great sacrificial ceremonies. Every day he used to give in charity to the learned Brahmins such things as weddings, seeds, conveyance, and sufficient quantities of gold. Because of the munificent charities and performances of the innumerable sacrifices, the king of heaven, Indradev, was fully satisfied with him and always wished for his welfare. Due to his pious activities, he remained a young man throughout his life and reigned over the world for 1,000 years, surrounded by his satisfied subjects, ministers, legitimate wives, sons, and brothers. Even Lord Shri Krishna praised his spirit of pious activities. He handed over his only daughter to Maharaj Angira, and by his good blessings, he was elevated to the kingdom of heaven. First of all, he wanted to offer the priesthood of his sacrifices to learned Brahaspati, but the demigod refused to accept the post because of the king's being a human being, a man of this earth. He was very sorry for this, but on the advice of Narad Muni, he appointed Samvarta to the post and he was successful in his mission. The success of a particular type of sacrifice completely depends on the priest in charge. In this age, all kinds of sacrifice are forbidden because there is no learned priest amongst the so called Brahmins. Why go by the false notion of becoming sons of Brahmins without Brahminical qualification? In this age of Kali, therefore, the only one kind of sacrifice is recommended, Sankirtan Yagna, as inaugurated by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. So, and here, the brothers, especially Arjuna, then Bhima and Nakul Sahadev, they understood the mood of Yudhishthir Maharaj. So they went in all different directions to collect the taxes. I mean, to collect the wealth. So another name of Arjuna is Dhananjay. Dhananjay means one who conquered the wealth. So wherever he went, he fought and he collected a lot of money for the sacrifice which Yudhishthira was performing. So here the description of Maruta is given. So we have read it. So then we'll move on to the next sloka. And also, in the final conclusion, it says, in this Kali Yuga, no sacrifice is powerful as chanting the holy name of the Sri Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna himself says, Yagnanam japa yagnosmi. Of all the sacrifices, the chanting of my holy name, that is japa yagna, is very, very powerful. So why other sacrifices are not so powerful as uh, in the previous yugas? Because first and foremost, we don't get a competitive brahmana. So the brahmanas, first of all, they have to be very, very austere. So in olden days, people used to be there, but we hardly find such people now. So they have to be very well learned in the shlokas. Even the slightest mistake in the pronunciation will give you the totally different benediction. So as we go further, we are going to read in the fifth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Brahma, Indra wanted to kill his enemies. So he performs one yagna. So wherein he was supposed to be killed by kill his uh, kill his opponent, but because of the wrong pronunciation of the priest, that has become ulta. So we have to be extremely careful. So in this Kali Yuga, it's very difficult to get such qualified brahmanas. So that's the one point. And secondly, we don't get the ingredients required for performing the five sacrifices. The main ingredient for performing five sacrifices is ajya. Ajya means the ghee. So now we don't get the pure ghee, right? So much adulterated ghees. So everything, all ingredients are adulterated. So that's the reason, the easiest thing we can perform is chanting the holy name of the Lord. So which is inaugurated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And also, as you all know, this is something which is not it is invented by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is ever existing in Goloka Vrindavan. So Golokera Premadana Harinam Sankirtan. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bought this holy name from Golok Vrindavan. This is something which is not Hare Krishna people or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has invented this chanting of the holy name. It is there in all the Vedas, Shastras, everything. It is there, but this is descended from right from Goloka Vrindavan. So if we chant the holy name properly, it is as good as performing the all these sacrifices. We will move to the next verse. Tena samruta sambharo dharmaputro yudhishthirah वाजिमेदैस् त्रिभिर्भीतो यज्ञै समयजाधारिम्. Translation.
Translation and purport by Sri Prabhupada ji. Jai Sri Prabhupada ji. By those riches, the king could procure the ingredients for 3 horse sacrifices. Thus, the pious king Yudhishthira, who was very fearful after the battle of Kurukshetra, pleased Lord Hari, the personality of Godhead. Purport. Maharaja Yudhishthir was the ideal and celebrated pious king of the world, and still he was greatly afraid after the execution of the battle of Kurukshetra because of the mass killing in the fight, all of which was done only to install him on the throne. He therefore took all the responsibility for sins committed in the warfare, and to get rid of all these sins, he wanted to perform 3 sacrifices in which horses are offered at the altar. Such a sacrifice is very costly. Even Maharaja Yudhishthir had to collect the necessary heaps of gold left by Maharaja Maruta and the Brahmanas who were given gold in charity by King Maruta. The learned Brahmanas could not take away all the loads of gold given by Maharaj Maruta, and Therefore, they left behind the major portions of the gift. And Maharaja Maruta also did not again collect such heaps of gold given away in charity. Besides that, all the golden plates and utensils which were used in the sacrifice were also thrown in the dustbins, and all such heaps of gold remained unclaimed property for a long time, till Maharaja Yudhishthir collected them for his own purposes. Lord Sri Krishna advised the brothers of Maharaja Yudhishthir to collect the unclaimed property because it belonged to the king. The more astonishing thing is that no subject of the state also collected such unclaimed gold for the industrial enterprise or anything like that. This means that the state citizens were completely satisfied with all the necessities of the life and therefore not inclined to accept unnecessarily productive enterprises for sense gratification. Maharaj Yudhishthir also requisitioned the heaps of gold for performing sacrifices and for pleasing the Supreme Hari, the personality of Godhead. Otherwise, he had no desire to collect them for the state treasury. One should take lessons from the acts of Maharaj Yudhishthir. He was afraid of sins committed on the battlefield and therefore he wanted to satisfy the supreme authority. This indicates that unintentional sins are also committed in our daily occupational discharge of duties, and to counteract even such unintentional crimes, one must perform sacrifices as they are recommended in the revealed scriptures. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Yagnartha karmano nyatra loko yam karma bandhanaha, that one must perform sacrifices recommended in the scriptures in order to get rid of commitments of all unauthorized work or even unintentional crimes which we are apt to commit. By doing so, one shall be freed from all kinds of sins, and those who do not do so but work for self-interest or sense gratification have to undergo all tribulations occurred from committed sins. Therefore, the main purpose of performing sacrifices is to satisfy the Supreme Personality Hari. The process of performing sacrifices may be different in terms of different times, places, and persons, but the aim of such sacrifices is one and the same at all times and in all circumstances, with satisfaction of the Supreme Lord Hari. That is the way of pious life, and that is the way of peace and prosperity in the world at large. Maharaja Yudhishthir did all these as the ideal pious king in the world. If Maharaja Yudhishthir is a sinner in his daily discharge of duties and royal administration of state affairs, wherein killing of man and animals is a recognized art, then we can just imagine the amount of sins committed consciously or unconsciously by the untrained population of the Kali Yuga who have no way to perform sacrifice to please the Supreme Lord. The Bhagavatam says, therefore, that the prime duty of the human being is to satisfy the Supreme Lord by the performance of one's occupational duty. 1.2.13 Bhagavatam. Let any man of any place of community, caste, or creed be engaged in any sort of occupational duty, but he must agree to perform sacrifices as it is recommended in the scriptures for the particular place, time, and person. In the Vedic literatures, it is recommended that in Kali Yuga, people engage in glorifying the Lord by chanting the holy name of Krishna. Kirtanad eva Krishnasya mukta sangha param vrajet. Without offense. By doing so, one can be freed from all sins and thus can attain the highest perfection of life by returning home back to Godhead. We have already discussed this more than once in this great literature in different places, especially in the introductory portion of the sketching the life of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and still we are repeating the same with a view to bring about peace and prosperity in society. The Lord has declared openly in Bhagavad Gita how he becomes pleased with us, and the same process is practically demonstrated in life and preaching work of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The perfect process of performing yagna or sacrifice to please the Supreme Lord Hari, the personality of Godhead who gets us freed from all miseries of existence, is to follow the ways of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this dark age of quarrel and dissension. Maharaja Yudhishthir had to collect heaps of gold to secure the paraphernalia of the horse sacrifice yagna in days of sufficiency, so we can hardly think of such performance of yagna in these days of insufficiency and complete scarcity of gold. At the present moment, we have to We have heaps of papers and promise of their being converted into gold by economic development of modern civilization, and still there is no possibility of spending riches like Maharaja Yudhishthir, either individually or collectively or by state patronization. Just suitable, therefore, for the age is the method recommended by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in terms of the Shastra. Such a method requires no expenditure at all and yet can award more benefits than other expensive methods of yagna performances. So nice. The horse sacrifice yagna or cow sacrifice yagna performed by the Vedic regulations shouldn't be misunderstood as a process of killing animals. On the contrary, the animals offered for the yagna were rejuvenated to a new span of life by the transcendental power of chanting the Vedic hymns, which is properly chanted, are different from what is understood by the common layman. The Veda mantras are all practical, and the proof is rejuvenation of the sacrificed animal. There is no possibility of such methodical chanting of Vedic hymns by the so-called Brahmanas or priests of the present age. The untrained descendants of the twice-born families are no more like their forefathers, and thus they are counted amongst the Sudras and once-born men. The once-born man is unfit to chant the Vedic hymns, and therefore there is no practical utility of chanting the original hymns. And to save them all, the Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu propounded the Sankirtan movement of Yagna for all practical purposes, and the people of the present age are strongly recommended to follow this sure and recognized path. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. So nice.
Yeah, thank you, Mataji. So Prabhupada, he would not give any chance, if he get. So he will completely tell, about our Sankirtana movement. So in this verse, by those riches, the king could procure the ingredients for 3 horse sacrifices. Thus, the pious king Yudhishthira, who was very fearful after the battle of Kurukshetra, pleased Lord Hari, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. First and foremost, why Yudhishthira Maharaj is engaging in performance of the horse sacrifice is to, as per the instruction of Bhishma Dev, he wants to counteract all the sinful activities he has committed during the Mahabharata war. Of course, he did not commit, but being a saintly person, he is thinking he is responsible for killing all those people, right? So that's quality of a Uttamadhikari and a good Vaishnava. A Vaishnava is the one who is paradukki. Whenever he sees the sorrows, or when he sees other person distress, he feel very sad. He will feel very sorry for them. So he is not happy. But in modern day, what happens when we see somebody is suffering? Then we think, you see, and we take pleasure. What is a general tendency in this present age? Para dukkha sukhi. When we see other people in distress, we feel happy. So whereas Vaishnavas are not like that. They are para dukkha dukhi. They are always, whenever they see distress of other, they will also become very distressed. So when after the war, Yudhishthira Maharaj, he is thinking he is responsible for killing so many people in the war. And so to atone that, he is performing the Ashwamedha Yagna on the order of Bhishma Dev. And also and why we do all this sacrifice, all this religious activities? The main goal is given in Srimad Bhagavatam. Sam Siddhim Haritoshanam. So here the Prabhupada gives the reference also. It is shloka number 1 to 13, which says Atha Pumbir Dvija Shrestha Varnashrama Vibhagashaha Swanutistasya Dharmasya Samsiddhir Haritoshanam. It says, it is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging the duties prescribed for one's own occupation according to the caste division, that is Varnashrama, is to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So whatever pleases Supreme Personality of Godhead, that only we should do. So here Yudhishthira Maharaj, he is performing Ashwamedha Yagna to please Lord Hari. Samsiddhim Haritoshanam. And also here, so like in Bhagavad Gita also, it is clearly stated that how he become pleased with us. The same process is demonstrated in the preaching of the perfect process of performing yagnas or sacrifice to please Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us. So he gave us, like performing, this Ashwamedha Yagna is so expensive, so impractical. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has inaugurated this Sankirtana Yagna. So practically with no cost we can do it, right? So we can take our Japamala and we can chant ourselves. Then you can engage other peoples also, your family members, your community members, all come together and chant loudly. That is called as congregational chanting. So these are all as powerful as performance of Ashwamedha Yagna and all these things. So in during Prabhupada's time, maybe it's if I remember dates correctly, it's around 1973 or 1974. There was a heavy drought in Andhra Pradesh. There was no rain for practically 4 years. We all know, right? Andhra Pradesh, it's one of the main place for the agriculture. So absolutely there was no rain, and so there were people are all in distress, and somehow it came to Prabhupada notice. Then one of the landlord in Hyderabad, he invited Srila Prabhupada to come and hold Sankirtan Yagna. So Prabhupada went there, he stayed there for 7 days, and every day there used to be huge kirtan and katha, and they were distributing thousands of prasadams for whoever comes there. So that was the program arranged. And on the 7th day, when they concluded, it started raining heavily, and it rained to such an extent which is required for for complete one full year. All the lakes, all the rivers were full. So in that way, this Hare Krishna Mahamantra is capable of bringing what all required for one's uh, prosperity. And also, but present days, what we see, all our so-called politicians, they are all self-interested. They really don't know what is the goal of life. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Parikshit Maharaj talks about this. He says, Nathe vidu swartha gatim hi Vishnu durashraya hi bahirartha maninam. He says, Nathe vidu swartha gatim. So they don't know what is their goal. What is their goal? So our goal should be Vishnu, to attain the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So they forget that. So because of that, what they do? Durashrayahi bahirartha maninam. They, instead of they turn their face away from Krishna, and they have taken the shelter of Maya. That is bahirartha. Durashraya. They have taken the shelter of Dura. Instead of taking good Ashraya, they have taken bad Ashraya, bad association. And Andham Yathandhe Upaniyamanam means a person is a blind. So many people are following that blind person. So what is our consequences? Just imagine, there's a one blind man, he is standing on, Sheikh Zayed Road where 6 lanes are there. So, he wants to cross the road, and in following him, there are hundreds and thousands of people thinking that he will able to help us, to cross this road. So when all those people come, what will be their fate? So everybody will be collapsed, right? So the person himself is blind, but how can he give guidance to the others? So andham yathande upaniyamanam. So that is the current situation. The people, we because we don't have the proper leaders, all these things will happen. If the leader is good, everything will fall in place. Okay, so we'll move to another two verses. We'll quickly wrap up today's session. verse number 35. Ahuto Bhagavan Ragna Yajayitva Dvijain Rupam Yuvasa Katinam Masam Suhrudam Priyakamyaya.
Lord Shri Krishna, the personality of the Godhead, being invited to the sacrifices by Maharaj Yudhishthir, saw to it that they were performed by qualified twice born Brahmins. After that, for the pleasure of the relatives, the Lord remained a few months. Lord Shri Krishna was invited by Maharaj Yudhishthir to look into the supervision of the performances of yagna, and the Lord, to abide by the orders of his elderly cousin, caused the performance of yagnas by learned twice born Brahmins. Simply taking birth in the family of a Brahman does not make one qualified to perform yagna. One must be twice born by proper training and initiation from the bona fide acharya. The ones born seconds of the Brahmins' families are equal with the ones born Shudras, and such Bandhus and such Brahma Bandhus or unqualified ones born Skyans must be rejected by for any purpose of religion or Vedic function. Lord Shri Krishna was entrusted to look after the arrangement and perfect as he is. He caused the agnas to be performed by the bona fide twice born Brahmins for successful execution.
Yeah. In this verse, the Lord is personally supervising the entire sacrifice of Yudhishthir Maharaj. So, like, which means Lord is very much pleased with Yudhishthir Maharaj's Ashwamedha Yagna. Hmm? So, again, here Prabhupada talks about Brahma Bandhu. So, normally, the tendency is what, like, especially going in India, like, we go by our family tradition. If a person of Brahmana, if a son of Brahmana, he will also become a Brahmana. That's called as caste conscious people. But according to Bhagavad Gita, what it is there? Chaturvarnyam maya srishtam guna karma vibhagashaha. So we imbibe these qualities by our I mean our intention, our qualities. We get these gunas. Is not by birth we automatically acquire that. Of course, there is a great chance of like if we take birth in Brahmana family, yes, we have great chance of cultivating the qualities in mode of goodness, but it's not necessary. So if they don't follow, if they don't cultivate sattva gun, they might cultivate tamo gun also. So then we cannot blindly call them as brahmanas also. So they are, in that case, they are only called as brahma bandhu. Like a father may be a doctor. It not necessary all his children will become doctor also. So same thing. So Brahma Bandhu. So until unless they get, and in the beginning of the class we have seen what is the definition of a Brahmana. Brahma Janati iti Brahmana. One who understands Brahman realization, that person is called as Brahmana. So one should strive for it, not only on caste conscious. So in often time in India, so we go by this. And this here we can see the mood and mission of Srila Prabhupada very clear. Prabhupada was very strict as far as such things comes, this Brahma Bandhus. So because of this, some Brahmanas were against Srila Prabhupada. He is talking about us, and he is he is reducing our respect in the society. But it's not so. What Prabhupada is talking, he is talking from the scriptures. This is what in Bhagavad Gita Krishna spoke in 4th chapter 13 verse. That is Chaturvarnyam Maya Srishtam was. So this is what Srila Prabhupada, see, he's wherever he get a chance, he will clearly mention it. So we'll move to the last verse for the day,
Prabhu,
and also the chapter.
Prabhu, one question.
Yeah.
Why is it mentioned as Brahman as twice born? Because if he's a Brahman, he would have already crossed that stage of twice born Vipra and then reach the Brahman, right? So if a Brahman is by default twice born, why does it need to be specifically qualified as twice born?
Yeah, that's the first qualification to become a Brahmana. Hmm? Like as we say, as we see in Prabhu, if you want to cultivate Brahmanas, or if you, I mean, in olden days, it was like, we'll go to a Gurukula and we will be trained under the Guru. So for which the first and foremost, he will become a Dvija. He was given a Upanayan Samskara. Then he will send to the Gurus for acquiring the further knowledge. So that's a practice. They will say first they will address as Dvija, because we don't know, maybe he has really become a Brahmana. Has he really understood Brahma Janati Iti Brahmana, that stage he has come or not? But at least he is on the process. So he is going to the Guru and he is learning the Shastras. So that's the reason, most of the times, like whenever Brahmana definition comes, this, Prabhupada translated as "O twice born." So that's what it is, Prabhu.
Okay, Prabhu.
Yeah. Okay. Last verse. Tatoragna वेनुज्ञातः कृष्णस्य सह बन्धुभिः युयौ द्वारावतीं ब्रह्मन् सार्जुनो युधभिर्वृताः.
O Shonen, thereafter the Lord, having bade farewell to King Yudhishthira, Draupadi, and other relatives, started for the city of Dwarka, accompanied by Arjuna and other members of Yadu dynasty.
Okay, so after this, Lord went to Dwaraka. So after taking permission from all this Yudhishthir Maharaj, Draupadi, and Arjuna, so and he also took Arjuna to Dwaraka. So this is what is described in this chapter, and in the next chapter we are going to see what happens to Dhritarashtra. Now all these days, in spite of losing all his sons, Dhritarashtra still is under the care of Pandavas. So now he is going to get enlightenment, that we are going to see in the next chapter. So
One small question.
yeah.
We have there was a mention of that they collected the funds for 3 Ashramim Yag, but I think he did only one.
But here it says 3 now, Prabhu. He was instructed to perform 3 yagnas.
Acha, he was
Yeah,
instructed
to be honest with you, I'm also not sure, but in the purport is clearly mentioned. He was instructed by
Bhishma
Bhishma.
Pitama.
Yeah. Okay, that we will. We will do some research and we'll get back to you, bro.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Okay.
Very nice. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Granthraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any questions? Any comments?
No, Prabhu.
Jai. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Many thank you. It was wonderful. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Now you see, like Subal Prabhu bought this, reading of Chaitanya Charitamrita. See, everywhere Srila Prabhupada recommends us to read this Chaitanya Charitamrita, right? In this today's class also, in 2 purports he did mention about it. So it's so important. Please, we humbly request you all join, from wherever you are there. So timing also seems to be good, evening 4 to 5. So just humble request, please log in and hear the nectar from the one of the Senapati disciple of Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Granthraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Panchakalpatarubhyascha कृपा सिंधुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय. श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय. को प्रेमानंदे. हरि हरि बोल.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.